Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we're going to do another little update video on one of our mini project cars. So the 34 Sedan delivery this past winter, we worked like crazy, well, fall into winter. We worked really hard to get this thing turned around. I did all the wet sanding. Steve and I kind of tackled just getting this thing moving under its own power. And basically we kind of slowed down because we were going to do a Columbia rear in it, and we're getting some gauges redone and different stuff like that. So in this video, we're gonna hopefully do the last big round of work to this thing before it is fully roadworthy. So it's all wired now, the engine's in, and runs pretty good. You know, trans and all that stuff's good, shifts nice. It's just basically, we gotta get the rear pulled out of this to put the Columbia rear in, and we gotta figure out how we're gonna do the juice brake stuff, and then a couple gauges and little things like that, and then we'll be off and running. So we're gonna do an update video, whatever we get done until we get stopped by not having parts or time. That's what you're gonna see in this video, so let's get started.
Well, the video's over already.
Yeah.
We don't have any parts.
Well, we can
that way.
We're gonna be proactive.
I'm just messing with you.
Okay, so we're working on figuring out the fabrication here for the juice brake conversion. So we copied on the green 32. Joe I forget his shop's name, in California, did a really good conversion. I kind of replicated off Instagram his setup where he used the stock brake bias on the 32, flipped it around, and made it all work. He did a great job. We replicated it, probably not as good as he did, but we're using that anyways. We're using that as a jump off point for this car. So using the same idea where we're going to try and use the stock brake bias link area and then kind of build off from there. So on this particular one, it's a little different because how the brake pushes and where everything comes out. It's actually kind of a little easier than a 32. So I'm going to try and find the brake pedal here. And if you look, there's a rod up here that's connected to the brake, and it actually pulls forward. And then we still have the rear mechanical brakes hooked up on this car. So it is pulling the mechanical brakes, it's pulling this rod forward, which pulls the brakes. We actually need the push rod when you push the brake to push the other way. So much like this arm here, which would have worked the front brakes, we're gonna try and use that, because when I pull on the brake pedal or push on the brake pedal, look at this link is going the direction we're looking for. So what we're trying to do is line up as best as possible without having it drag on the ground this eye here with the master cylinder. So we have a piece of angle iron just to give us a point of reference where we can mount it, and we're basically trying to line this up like that. And if we move it up a little bit, it'll just be a tiny bit higher. Do you have that rod, Steve, we can show?
Yeah.
The angle here. So I'll move you guys to the side a little bit like that. Editing, our production quality is very low. So idea is to have the master cylinder somewhere in here. You can see that does go uphill a bit, but what we can do is actually put like a Z in the rod to get that angle a little less. It's probably something like that. Actually, it's down. Oh, I lied. Actually, I gotta go down more to line up here. So it's kind of like this. Not a real steep angle in the end of the day, and honestly, I've seen brake setups from back in the day that they had an angle like that and they were fine with it. But what we'll probably do is make a push rod that has a little Z in it, but it'll still be strong and be adjustable to work this. So we gotta build some bracketry basically off the X member that's kind of roughly in this location. What we're running into is when I built this exhaust, I kind of did it backwards. I probably should have done the juice brakes first. Although with keeping the battery box, everything's kind of where it has to be.
Yeah.
But we're running into where the exhaust comes up in here. This bracket can't run into it, obviously. So we're gonna have to work around all of that. So we're gonna try and keep the master cylinder where it is up above the exhaust here, so we're not, if we ever hit something on the road or roadkill, whatever, we're not taking out the master cylinder or maybe hitting it on the exhaust. So we still have brakes, your exhaust will just sound like shit. So,
Which is way better.
yeah, and it'll smell like rotting flesh. So yeah, so that's what the plan is. We're gonna make some sort of bracketry here that's nice and strong, that will have this bolt pattern in it. All this will be nice and strong. We'll have to make some like angular brackets to keep everything from flexing a lot. But this one seems a little easier. We don't even really have to touch the rod that's going to the brake pedal during this process. We really just need to make this adjustable push rod and then make our bracketry to hold this. So that's the plan. We're going to start kind of measuring and patterning out everything, and then we'll start making all the pieces and start zapping them together to make it all work. Good. Okay.
All right, got the master cylinder rebuilt and put back in the car. Got the front brakes all done. Time to start thinking about linkage and brake lines. So next we're going to tackle the linkage from the brake lever here back to the master cylinder. Probably have to heat this up and straighten it out a little bit. It's got a little bit of a bend on it from its original use. So we'll see how that goes. There we go.
Okay. Now, hopefully,
Okay.
oh, I can afford this, guys. Barely.
Come a little bit low. There we go. And there we go. One brake rod. Oh.
Okay, so I haven't been here much, but we're gonna check in. Steve's been working on the brakes. We're gonna kind of end the video here because it's a good stopping point. We're waiting on some parts. So you did everything up front. If you want to talk about.
Ran all the brake lines. We I had to put brakes obviously on the backing plates and all that. Got our soft lines up. Ran hard lines through. Got them all tucked in there and mounted up with some clamps that I made.
And we're using just stock like F1 soft lines off, and then we just did we have some or did you make them? I forget the tabs.
The I make the little locking clips we buy.
No,
the tabs I make those. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just,
We have them kicking around from estates, but they're basically just small piece of steel.
That's all it is.
So, but yeah, we use copper nickel line and all that stuff. So Steve's got all that done. Then we'll show you kind of the only thing I did in this whole project was this bracket underneath here. So this,
what a bracket it is.
So this bracket, I don't know how much we talked about earlier in the video, but basically it is a 1/4 inch piece of angle. You could either weld it together, but we were lucky enough to have some heavy duty stuff kicking around. I added some little webbing braces in here, here, and here. Steve drilled the hole for the master cylinder. We just kind of I shaped everything just so it wasn't as bulky, and it just drops down enough for the master cylinder. And then on both sides, I won't show you the other side, but I added these little tabs so that it's locked in to the X member there, and then it's locked in on either side in the bottom there. Steve hung on the thing with his weight, and it did not move or flex whatsoever.
No, that is very strong bracket.
Yeah, so that's all good. And what we did was we again tried to utilize moving our light around here, utilize our factory brake bias area here. And we left the rear brake rods on for now for the mechanical brakes because we didn't know if we were gonna have to move the car. We're waiting on the rear to get finished, so just in case we left that connected. And we ended up actually using the front arm here that usually would have went to the front brakes, and that's what we're using to activate the master cylinder. So Steve made up, we went and got, what was it, 7/60?
Yeah, 7/16 piece of rod.
So we just looked at a factory push rod, and it was 7/16. So we went and got some solid bar stock and then Steve just tapped it to match the factory rod end links that are for all kinds of different stuff for early Ford, but brake, clutch, mechanical brakes, so I forget which one it is, but we have a drawer of those. So he used those, that slips right over this arm, and then he actually used the inductance,
Something like that.
something like that, the magical heater tool we got. He was able to just carefully put that up over there, and that's where it was actually better than a torch, because with a torch I would have been burning all the paint and everything on the exhaust around it, starting this grease on fire. So he was able to heat and just twist this and move it just a little bit to get it all lined up. And then of course he put a little Z or S bend in that just to get the rod so it's pretty much going into the master cylinder straight. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now the pedal, I don't know if I can get my hand up in there.
Yeah.
Somewhere, there it is. I think the pedal's there. That's a brake. That's clutch.
There it is.
So that's pushing master cylinder, and it's a little hard to push right now because I'm also pulling the rear brakes, but I'm pulling it by hand so you can see that rod's pushing that. Everything's very stout. This push rod is obviously just a little bit longer than it would have been originally, but I think it's so strong and everything's kind of overbuilt that we shouldn't have any issues.
Yeah, that ain't going anywhere.
So we should be good. So that's kind of, the front brakes are done. That's done. And then, so Steve's gonna work on next time, we're gonna get the rear pulled and he can run the rear brake lines. We didn't do the rear brake lines because the wishbone, the routing of the brake lines with the wishbones are gonna be a little different because it's a 40 Columbia we're putting in this. So the wishbone length and angle is gonna be a little different. So we opted to wait for that. So oh yeah, Steve just has to run the rear brake lines once we get that rear under. So hopefully the next time we will have a drive shaft, a rear, and rear brake lines. And bleed the brakes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then we can actually drive this thing.
Heck yeah.
So very exciting, but thank you guys for following along. Appreciate it. And hopefully this will help you if you're looking to make a similar conversion. This is how we did it on this one. Thanks guys. Catch you later.